So, right before we hit record today, I was actually just looking at my dog.
Oh no, did he give you the look?
He absolutely gave me the look, like this expression of utter, just devastating betrayal.
Because you were choosing the microphone over the couch.
Exactly. I was setting up my headphones, getting everything plugged in, and he is just curled up under this fleece blanket. And honestly, a huge part of me really, really wanted to choose the couch.
I mean, who wouldn't? Your dog is basically the ultimate master of nervous system regulation.
He really is. He seeks comfort so instinctively.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, I'm overriding my own biology to sit upright at a desk and be productive.
Well, that pull you felt toward the couch, it isn't just laziness, It is a profound, deep-seated biological mandate.
Like a primal thing.
Completely primal. That couch represents nervous system comfort. It's grounding. The mammalian brain has this deep desire to just be safe, to conserve energy, to let the nervous system completely settle down. So your dog is operating in perfect alignment with his biology.
Which makes human behavior so fascinating, right?
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, a little tragic.
Oh, highly tragic sometimes.
Because we have that exact same profound desire for peace and safety and comfort. Yet, we are the exact same creatures who constantly disrupt our own peace.
Mm-hmm. By forcing massive, uncomfortable, sweeping changes onto our lives.
Exactly. We just wake up, decide our current state isn't good enough, and we declare total war on our own comfort zones. What if I told you that the massive, color-coded, incredibly ambitious self-improvement plan you created last Sunday night is actually the exact mechanism destroying your peace of mind?
It's worse than just destroying your peace, honestly. It's a biological trap.
A trap that we fall for over and over. And a very warm welcome to all of you listening to Vibrations and Manifestations.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Jared.
And I'm Alicia.
If you are listening to this right now, I want you to think about the last time you decided to completely overhaul your life. Because today, in this deep dive, we're tearing down the myth of the Monday morning overhaul.
We have to, because the way we've been taught to change our lives is fundamentally flawed. We operate under this collective delusion that transformation requires this, heroic, exhausting amount of effort.
Right, like if it doesn't hurt, it's not working.
Exactly. We believe that if a change doesn't feel agonizing, it just isn't real. But structurally, neurologically, and spiritually, that approach is guaranteed to collapse.
We basically treat our own lives like a demolition project.
That's a great way to put it, a total demolition.
And this brings us to the core pattern we are dissecting in our workshop-style journey today. Let's look at the actual anatomy of that Monday morning overhaul.
Yeah, let's break it down, because everyone listening knows exactly what this feels like.
Oh, for sure. If you're driving to work right now or, folding laundry, you probably have a mental list of 3 or 4 times you have tried this and quote-unquote failed.
Picture the scene, right? You wake up on a Monday.
You look around your house, you look at your calendar, and you are just unequivocally fed up. You are done with the clutter on the kitchen counter. You are done with feeling sluggish.
You declare that today is the day everything changes.
Everything. The energy in that moment feels incredibly pure, doesn't it?
It feels like absolute clarity, but functionally, it is actually a state of extreme emotional agitation.
Yes. It feels like an adrenaline shot. So you lean into that agitation, you go online and buy that $80 thick leather-bound productivity planner.
The one with all the ribbons?
The ribbons, the prompts, all of it. You throw out half the food in your pantry. You commit to waking up at 5:30 a.m. every single day.
And you tell yourself you're going to meditate for 30 minutes.
And drink a gallon of water, journal your deepest intentions, crush a high-intensity workout, and basically emerge as an entirely new, highly optimized human being by Friday.
And the funny thing is, for the first 48 hours, it actually works.
It totally works.
You're coasting on the emotional high of your own ambition. The sheer novelty of this new routine provides a massive dopamine hit. You genuinely feel like you have hacked the universe.
But the universe always strikes back. Life does what life does, which is it intervenes.
Always.
You have a terrible night of sleep because your kid's coughing.
Yeah.
Or you get an incredibly stressful email from your boss at 4 p.m.
Or the laundry just starts piling up to the point where it's like a structural hazard in your bedroom.
A literal tripping hazard. So the variables of your actual real reality begin to reassert themselves, which leads to the inevitable collision. Thursday morning arrives.
Ooh, the Thursday morning crash is brutal.
The alarm goes off in the pitch dark. Your body feels like it is filled with lead and your brain just says absolutely not.
We are not doing this.
Right. So you hit snooze, you miss the workout, you rush out the door eating a stale granola bar. And because you missed that one incredibly high bar you set for yourself, the whole house of cards comes down.
One missed day snowballs into a week of missed days.
And then a month. And the tragedy here isn't just that you stop the routine. The real tragedy is the psychological weight of the aftermath.
Yeah, because you don't just return to your baseline.
No, you return to your baseline carrying a brand new, suffocating layer of shame. You internalize the collapse. You sit there and tell yourself, I am lazy, I lack discipline, I am just incapable following through.
We need to give this behavior a name for the rest of our conversation today. We're going to call this pattern the intensity cycle.
The intensity cycle. I like that. And I want to pause right here and speak directly to your internal monologue, right, to you listening to us. If you have been caught in this loop, you are not broken.
Not at all.
You are not fundamentally lazy. The failure of the Monday morning overhaul has absolutely nothing to do with your character.
The issue was never a lack of desire either. Your longing to change was completely genuine.
And the issue was not a lack of motivation. You had an overabundance of motivation on that Sunday night.
The trap you fell into was mistaking intensity for transformation.
Wow. Mistaking intensity for transformation. That is a dangerous trap, though, because our culture actively rewards that intensity.
Oh, we applaud it. We applaud people who burn the midnight oil, who do these grueling 75-day physical boot camps, who make dramatic, sweeping declarations.
Because intensity feels dramatic. So it feels like it matches the exact size of our longing. If I want to change my life in a massive way, it feels intuitively correct that I need to take massive, exhausting action.
It feels intuitive, sure, but it is biologically unsustainable. Intensity is an emotional state, and emotional states are, by definition, temporary.
They fluctuate.
Exactly. They're designed to pass. You cannot build a permanent structure on a temporary foundation. What is endlessly fascinating, and what the data clearly bears out, is that the quietest, almost embarrassingly small, repeatable actions are the actual engines of manifestation and real growth.
This whole obsession with massive overhauls, I feel like it's a modern disease. If we look back at history, the people who actually produced world-changing bodies of work did not do it through a series of manic, intense boot camps.
No, they relied on quiet devotion.
And to anchor this deep dive, we really have to talk about Srinivasa Ramanujan.
His life is perhaps the purest historical demonstration of consistency outperforming environment and circumstance.
Let's paint the picture of his reality for a second, because frankly, it puts all of our modern excuses to shame. We are looking at India in the late 1880s and early 1900s.
Right.
If you were looking at Ramanujan from the outside, conventional logic would dictate that this person had a 0% chance of achieving global greatness in mathematics.
Literally every single institutional metric was against him. He grew up in extreme poverty. He had no elite institutional training whatsoever.
None. He was entirely disconnected from the academic networks of Europe, which were, the absolute epicenter of mathematical research at the time.
And he lived with severe financial difficulties and chronic, debilitating health issues his entire life.
He didn't even have access to paper for a long time, because paper was just too expensive.
Wait, really?
Yeah, he did his complex mathematical proofs on a literal slate with chalk. And when the slate was full, he would just erase it with his elbow to make room for more calculations.
Just erasing genius with his elbow?
Exactly. He only recorded the final finished results in his physical notebooks. But the point is, he was not waiting for the perfect conditions.
He didn't wait for a massive research grant, or for a prestigious university to validate his intellect, or for a burst of world-changing recognition to finally get started.
He didn't do a Monday morning overhaul. He engaged in a quiet, daily devotion to numbers. He treated his relationship with mathematics as a sacred daily practice. Day after day, year after year, he filled notebook after notebook with thousands of complex formulas and theorems.
The psychological aspect of this is what we really need to highlight. He was working in total isolation. He was entirely intrinsically driven. That is the true action of devotion. He wasn't performing for an audience. He wasn't posting his progress online to be validated. He was simply returning to the page.
That part really convicts me, because I know myself and I secretly crave external validation. If I'm going to do something difficult, I want someone to notice.
We all want the gold star.
I want the gold star. I want to tell everyone about my intense new routine. But Ramanujan worked consistently without any of the external validation that we all use as fuel. He just kept showing up.
And eventually, that accumulation of effort reached a tipping point. He sent letters out to several British academics. Most of them totally ignored him.
Of course.
But one letter made its way to G.H. Hardy, who was an incredibly brilliant and respected mathematician at Cambridge University.
And the letter he sent Hardy wasn't just a quick note. It was packed with over 100 highly complex theorems.
Hardy initially thought it might be a complex fraud, actually, because the formulas were so bizarre and advanced. But once he actually sat down and examined them, he was stunned.
Stunned is the exact right word. But let's look at what actually stunned Hardy. It wasn't just a single isolated lightning bolt of a brilliant idea. A single good idea can easily be dismissed as a fluke. Hardy was overwhelmed by the sheer, undeniable accumulated weight of the notebooks. He was looking at the physical evidence of a person who had shown up day after day, layering complex thought upon complex thought.
The tragedy of the story, of course, is that Ramanujan died at just 32 years old.
Such a short life.
But his legacy completely proves the premise of our conversation today. They rediscovered his quote-unquote lost notebook in 1976, sitting in a box at Cambridge. And right now, today, top-tier mathematicians are still actively studying his original writings.
There's actually a publication, the Ramanujan Journal, dedicated entirely to proving and applying the formulas he quietly wrote down on his slate over a century ago.
It is the ultimate proof of compounding effort. One person's consistent private work is still producing profound fruit long after their lifetime.
I want to push back on this, though.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because if I am listening to this while trying to, just clean my kitchen or commute to work, it is very easy to think, well, that is a beautiful historical anecdote about a literal once-in-a-century genius.
Right. Good for him.
Yeah, good for him. But I am not trying to discover a new branch of mathematics. I am just trying to stop yelling at my kids when I'm stressed and maybe drink a glass of water before I drink 3 cups of coffee.
Totally valid.
So how does a mathematical prodigy translate to my chaotic, messy life?
It's a vital pushback. But the lesson we are extracting from Ramanujan is not about his genius. You do not need to be a genius to apply this principle. The lesson is his willingness to return.
The willingness to return.
Exactly. Ramanujan didn't know how far those notebooks would travel. He didn't know they would end up at Cambridge or be studied 100 years later, or that his equations would eventually be used to understand the behavior of black holes, which wasn't even conceptualized in his time.
That's wild to think about.
He didn't demand immediate proof that his work mattered. He just trusted the process.
And that is the absolute antithesis of the intensity cycle. Intensity demands immediate proof. If I do a grueling 3-hour workout on Monday, I expect to look in the mirror on Tuesday morning and see a physically different body. And when I don't see it, I feel cheated and I quit. Consistency creates proof over time.
You are allowing the quiet accumulation of daily effort to build the evidence rather than demanding immediate, loud results.
When you say willingness to return, it really reminds me of a time in my own life when I had to learn this the incredibly hard way.
Oh, I want to hear this.
The Ramanujan story is beautiful, but my own story of learning this is much more, embarrassing. But I want to share it because I think it perfectly illustrates how blinding the emotional trap of the intensity cycle really is.
Please do. Theoretical concepts only really matter when they survive contact with actual human reality.
So a few years ago, I was in a season where I felt completely, utterly stagnant. My work felt like wading through mud, my health was sluggish, and my daily routines were practically non-existent.
We've all been in that exact swamp.
The swamp. Yes. So, completely falling prey to the cultural narrative we've been talking about, I decided I was going to force a life transformation through sheer willpower. I sat down on a Sunday night and I created the quote-unquote perfect plan.
I can hear the impending doom in the phrase perfect plan.
Oh, it was a masterpiece of absolute delusion. It was a massive spreadsheet, color-coded.
Of course it was color-coded.
Time-blocked down to 15-minute increments. I had engineered a completely different, highly efficient version of myself on paper. I was going to wake up at 4:30 a.m., drink warm lemon water, meditate for 45 minutes, write 2,000 words, and do a kettlebell workout all before 7 a.m.
You were trying to jump the chasm of your reality in a single leap.
And I rode the emotional high of that spreadsheet for about 4 days.
Yeah.
I forced myself through the motions, running purely on cortisol and adrenaline.
It's exhausting just listening to it.
But looking back, I can see so clearly that this massive plan was completely unmoored from the realities of my actual physical and emotional capacity. It wasn't born from genuine clarity, it was just frustration wearing a costume.
Frustration wearing a costume. That is a brilliant articulation of the psychology at play here.
It felt so accurate to me when I realized it.
Because when we are deeply frustrated with our own perceived stagnation, we don't design supportive systems. We design punishments disguised as self-improvement plans.
Yes, it felt like a punishment for being stuck. And of course, the plan shattered. By Thursday, I was just exhausted. I overslept. The rigid schedule was instantly broken.
The Thursday crash strikes again.
But the most destructive part wasn't the failure of the plan. It was how my brain interpreted that failure. I didn't look at the spreadsheet and say, wow, this was mathematically impossible for a human being.
No, you internalized it.
I internalized it deeply. I sat on the edge of my bed and thought, I am just not a consistent person. I must not want a better life badly enough. I am fundamentally flawed.
That is the tragedy of the shame spiral. You blame your own character instead of blaming the deeply flawed, unsustainable design of the intervention. You assumed you were the problem when the intensity was the problem.
So, driven by sheer exhaustion, with this cycle of hyping myself up and then tearing myself down, I decided to run an experiment. I completely abandoned the spreadsheet. And I started experimenting with actions that felt, quite frankly, embarrassingly small.
Define embarrassingly small for the listener. What did that actually look like?
I am talking about writing just one single paragraph a day, not 2,000 words, one paragraph. I committed to drinking exactly one glass of water before I was allowed to make my morning coffee. I committed to taking just one single minute to close my eyes and breathe before I opened my laptop for work.
And how did your ego respond to those tiny commitments?
Oh, my ego hated it. My brain kept screaming, this doesn't count. This isn't a massive overhaul. You aren't going to change your life by drinking 4 ounces of water.
Right, because it lacked all the dramatic emotional satisfaction of the total life overhaul.
I didn't get the adrenaline rush of telling people about my extreme new routine.
It felt ridiculous because it wasn't a performance. It was an actual grounded practice.
But here's the core realization I had, and this is what I want you, the listener, to grab onto right now. Small actions aren't small because they are weak. They are small so that they can survive.
That is a foundational insight. They are small so they can survive the chaos of an ordinary day.
A giant, intense plan lives for 3 days in a vacuum. But a tiny, humble practice can live inside your actual, messy, unpredictable, chaotic life for years. And eventually you look up, the years have passed, and you realize you have actually become someone you trust because you kept your promise to yourself over and over again without the drama.
If we pull back and look at the architecture of what you're describing, we basically arrive at the core teaching of this deep dive. Let's state it as a definitive law. Intensity produces results that last only as long as the intensity lasts. Consistency produces results that outlast the effort.
I love mechanistic metaphors, so let's look at it like electricity.
Okay, let's hear it.
Intensity is like trying to charge your phone with a lightning bolt. It is a massive, spectacular amount of energy, but it instantly fries the battery. The system just cannot hold the charge. Consistency is a 5-watt trickle charge. It is boring. You can't even see it happening. But the battery actually retains the power, and eventually it is fully charged.
That's a perfect analogy. Another way to look at it is the flow of water. Intensity is a flash flood. It violently washes over the landscape, tears up the topsoil, and then disappears, leaving just a mess behind.
Wow. Yeah.
Consistency is a slow, steady river. It flows quietly day after day, and given enough time, it carves a canyon out of solid rock. The mechanism driving that river is compounding.
Compounding. Let's take compounding out of the realm of finance, though. We all know compound interest in a 401k, but how does compounding actually apply to our neurology and our habits?
Compounding in human behavior works through accumulation and adaptation. The first time you execute your new habit, let's say drinking that single glass of water, it feels isolated. It is just a single data point.
Right.
But the 100th repetition is no longer just an action. It is compounded into physiological evidence. It is actual proof to your nervous system that your future is being built through your present choices. The effort compounds because, over time, the friction of doing the action decreases while the accumulated benefit increases.
But this brings up the elephant in the room. Motivation.
Motivation.
We live in a culture that worships at the altar of motivation. We listen to hyped-up speeches. We wait to feel inspired before we act. But if we're relying on a trickle charge, relying on a steady river, motivation seems like a really flawed foundation.
It is entirely flawed if it is your primary strategy. We have to deconstruct what motivation actually is biologically. It is an emotional state, heavily influenced by dopamine. And while it is a beautiful emotion, it's wonderful for opening a door or initiating a brainstorm, it is highly, highly unstable.
Because our emotions are constantly shifting based on our environment.
Exactly. Your motivation fluctuates wildly based on variables you barely control. Think about it. How many hours of deep sleep did you get last night? Where are you in your hormonal cycle? Is your blood sugar spiking or crashing? How chaotic is your email inbox today?
It's a roller coaster.
Building a life transformation on motivation is like building a house on shifting sand. The moment the tide of stress comes in, the foundation washes away entirely.
So if we strip away motivation,
Hmm.
what is left? What do we shift to?
We must shift from relying on emotion to relying on a system. And to do that, you have to fundamentally change the internal question you ask yourself every morning. When you operate on the intensity cycle, your internal question is, am I motivated enough today to do the full grueling version of my routine?
And when you're tired, the answer is no, so you just do nothing.
Which is the all or nothing trap that kills all progress. The paradigm shift happens when you change the question to, what is the minimum version of this action that still counts?
What is the minimum version that still counts? That single question releases so much pressure. So the major takeaway here for you listening is this. Stop measuring your progress by the intensity of your best days.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone can be a superhero on a Sunday when they're fully rested. You need to start measuring your progress by the consistency of your ordinary, exhausted, messy days.
Because your life is mostly made up of ordinary days. If your system cannot survive a mundane Tuesday when you are sleep-deprived and slightly annoyed, it is not a system that will permanently change your life.
But I know that feeling of shame when you fail an intense plan. And the truth is that shame isn't a character flaw. It's actually a biological reality. Let's dive into the science behind this. I want to explain why repetition literally rewrites our physical reality, because understanding the biology takes all the moral judgment right out of our failures.
The science here is incredibly validating. Let's look at the actual neuroscience of habit formation. For decades, there has been this deeply entrenched myth in pop psychology that it takes exactly 21 days to form a habit.
Oh, the famous 21 days to a new you. I see that on magazine covers everywhere.
It is a profound misunderstanding of early plastic surgery research that got warped into a behavioral law. Philippa Lally, a health psychology researcher, conducted a rigorous study on how habits are actually formed in the real world.
Then what did she find?
She found that habit formation happens through repetition in consistent contexts, and it takes significantly longer than 21 days. On average, it takes 66 days, and for more complex behaviors, it can take up to 254 days for the action to become truly automatic.
Up to 254 days. So if you quit your new routine on day 22 because it still feels difficult and requires willpower, you aren't failing.
No,
You were just stopping right in the middle of the biological construction process.
precisely. You are abandoning the site before the concrete has dried. This ties directly into the neuroscience of purposeful behavior. A.I. Mendelssohn's research highlights that habits are cognitive routines that transition from conscious effort to automaticity through prior experience. Every time you repeat a behavior, you are signaling to your brain that this neural pathway needs reinforcement.
When I look at compounding neurologically, I immediately think of my 401k again. But biologically, I assume this works the same way with neural pathways. Every time I do the habit, I'm earning quote-unquote interest on the ease of doing it tomorrow.
That is a perfect way to frame it, and the biological currency of that interest is a substance called myelin. This brings us to the concept of adaptive myelination, which is extensively studied at institutions like Stanford Medicine.
I love the mechanics of this. Let's explain what myelin actually is to the listener, because it's fascinating.
It really is. So your brain is made up of billions of neurons, and they communicate by sending electrical signals down a long fiber. That fiber is called an axon.
Okay, an axon.
Now, myelin is a fatty insulating layer that wraps around these axons. Think of it exactly like the thick rubber or plastic insulation around a copper electrical wire.
Like the power cord from my laptop.
Exactly like that. When a neural circuit is actively and repeatedly used, specialized cells in your brain, they're called oligodendrocytes, actually physically wrap more layers of myelin around that specific circuit. This is adaptive myelination.
So what does adding that extra layer of fat actually do for our behavior? Why does it matter?
It dramatically increases the speed and efficiency of the electrical signal. Stanford Medicine uses the examples of juggling or playing the piano. When you first sit down to play a new chord on the piano, the electrical signals are traveling down uninsulated, leaky pathways.
Meaning the signal is weak.
The signal is slow, energy is lost, and the movement feels incredibly clunky and exhausting. Your brain is burning a massive amount of glucose just to figure it out.
Which perfectly explains why starting a new habit makes you feel physically tired. It's a heavy metabolic load.
Yes, the metabolic cost is very high. But with repeated, consistent practice, myelin wraps around those specific pathways. The insulation prevents the electrical signal from leaking. The signals begin to move at lightning speed with almost zero metabolic cost, and the behavior becomes smooth, effortless, and automatic.
Here's a visual to anchor this for you. Relying on the intensity cycle is like trying to walk through a dense, overgrown forest. You hack your way through the thick brush one time with a machete, you stomp around really hard, and you expect a permanently paved highway to appear the next morning.
Which is ridiculous.
It won't. The vines will just grow right back over the path in a few days. But consistency is walking that exact same gentle path every single day.
Yep.
Eventually, your footsteps pack the dirt down, the grass stops growing there, the trail becomes incredibly clear, and walking it requires zero thought.
You are carving the path through repetition, not force. The brain is inherently lazy. It wants to automate whatever you repeat so it can conserve energy. Which actually brings us to another fascinating scientific thread regarding small actions, the concept of marginal gains.
Oh, marginal gains. We hear the Dave Brailsford story all the time in productivity circles.
We do, but it's worth revisiting the core mechanic of it.
For context, Dave Brailsford took over as the performance director for British Cycling at a time when they were famously terrible. They hadn't won anything of significance in decades. His revolutionary philosophy was called the aggregation of marginal gains.
Instead of looking for one massive $1 million breakthrough that would suddenly make his cyclists world champions, he looked to improve every single tiny granular element of their performance by just 1%.
They broke down everything. They tested different massage gels to see which one offered a 1% faster muscle recovery. They hired a surgeon to teach the riders how to wash their hands with clinical precision so they wouldn't catch a cold during a race.
They even tested different pillows and mattresses.
Yes. And then they brought those exact optimized pillows to the hotels so the riders would get a perfectly consistent night's sleep. And the result was total dominance at the Olympics and the Tour de France.
It is the ultimate real-world demonstration of how tiny 1% choices compound over time to create an insurmountable performance gap.
Okay, I have to stop you there and push back on this.
Go for it.
Because I am honestly so tired of the Dave Brailsford story being used to make exhausted parents and overworked professionals feel worse about their lives.
Fair point.
We all know the 1% rule, but Brailsford had millions of dollars in funding. He had a completely controlled laboratory environment where his athletes' only job was to ride a bike.
Right, they weren't exactly juggling a 9-to-5 and daycare pickup.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There is a cellular exhaustion that comes from trying to, quote-unquote, optimize your life by 1% when you're operating outside of a sports vacuum. We're trying to do this while our kids are screaming in the background and we have 40 unread emails. So how do we actually adapt the 1% rule for chaotic, underfunded, messy environment?
That is the most important caveat we could possibly introduce. If you try to optimize every area of your life simultaneously while managing real-world chaos, you will trigger the exact burnout we are trying to avoid.
It's just another version of the intensity cycle.
Exactly. You don't adapt marginal gains by buying special pillows or agonizing over massage gel. You adapt it by isolating just one area of friction and making it 1% easier to execute.
So it's about reducing the friction of the good habit, not obsessively tracking every metric in your life.
Yes. Which leads us perfectly into the third scientific thread, which is identity-based behavior change. This bridges the gap between chaotic reality and sustained habits. This is heavily drawn from the work of behavior experts like B.J. Fogg, who developed the tiny habits method, and James Clear, who popularized atomic habits.
What I love about their approach is that it takes the focus completely off the overwhelming end goal and puts it entirely onto your present-day identity.
Because a habit is never just a mechanical task you cross off a to-do list. It is a psychological vote.
A psychological vote. I love that.
Every single time you take an action, no matter how small, you are casting a vote for the type of person you are becoming.
Let's break this down practically for the listener. If I write my one embarrassingly small paragraph today, I have not written a best-selling book. I am not even close to the outcome. But in that moment, I have cast a neurological vote that says, I am a writer. If I put my running shoes on and simply walk to the end of my driveway and back, I haven't burned enough calories to change my physique, but I have cast a powerful vote that says, I am someone who honors my body with movement.
You are shifting your self-concept, and this is where the hard behavioral science seamlessly bridges into the spiritual and manifestation side of our conversation. Because what is identity-based behavior change if not the exact mechanical core of manifestation?
Yes, let's cross that bridge right now. When we talk about manifestation, we throw around words like alignment and vibration. But how does consistency actually create what we call signal clarity?
If you study enduring spiritual paths, mystical traditions, or deep contemplative practices, they are rarely built on one-time explosive mountaintop experiences. They rely on the humble, daily return to the practice.
I think of John Kabat-Zinn bringing mindfulness to the West. The practice of mindfulness isn't going to a silent Vipassana retreat once every 10 years, having a massive emotional breakthrough, and then never meditating again.
No, it's not a one-and-done event.
The actual practice is sitting on the cushion in your messy living room every single morning, even when your mind is racing with anxiety, and just turning to your breath.
It is the sacredness of the ordinary. Look at Brother Lawrence, a 17th century monk who wrote The Practice of the Presence of God. He didn't find spiritual enlightenment in massive, grandiose religious ceremonies. He found it in the incredibly mundane, ordinary daily action of washing pots and pans in the noisy, chaotic monastery kitchen. He turned his attention into a constant, gentle return.
And if we look at modern manifestation teachings, like Neville Goddard, he spoke extensively about the concept of embodying an inner state. Manifestation isn't just making a vision board on a Sunday and hoping for the best. Goddard emphasized that you must consistently assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled.
Which brings us to signal clarity. Think of your nervous system, your subconscious mind, and the universe at large like a highly sensitive radio receiver.
Okay, a radio receiver.
When you are caught in the intensity cycle, acting drastically for 3 days, burning out, and then collapsing in shame for a month, you are sending out chaotic static. The signal is constantly starting and stopping. The universe and your own brain has no idea what you actually want or who you're trying to be.
But consistency sends a clear, unbroken, continuous signal. When you do the small thing every day, it tells your nervous system, this new behavior is safe. We do not need to trigger a fight or flight response. And it tells the universe what you are consistently available to receive.
That continuous signal is what collapses the timeline between where you are and where you want to be.
There is a phrase I wrote down while preparing for this deep dive. Consistency is faith in motion.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I love the weight of that. It means you are showing up before the evidence is obvious. You are writing the single paragraph long before a publisher ever calls. You are walking down the driveway long before the weight comes off. You are acting in faith that the compounding is happening beneath the surface.
Knowledge is only potential power, though. It becomes actual power when it is applied to your daily life. We have explored the history, the neuroscience of myelin, the behavioral psychology, and the spiritual framework of signal clarity. Now it is time to transition into the interactive portion of this conversation.
Yes, let's get practical.
We want to give you a very specific tactical toolkit to build a system that actually survives the chaos of your real life.
Because, as we have established, you cannot shame yourself into consistency. You cannot yell at yourself loud enough to overcome your biology. Consistency requires smart, compassionate design. So let's open the toolkit. Tool number 1 is the foundation of everything, the minimum viable action.
This is where we strip away the ego. I want you, the listener, to pick one goal right now. Just one. Got it. Now, define the absolute smallest, most microscopic version of that goal that still technically counts as forward motion.
Give me the most extreme examples of how small this needs to be, because people still aim too high here.
They do. Okay, if your goal is to declutter your entire home, the minimum viable action is clearing one single surface, maybe just the top of your nightstand.
That's it.
That's it. If your goal is to be a more present parent, the minimum viable action is putting your phone in a drawer for exactly 3 minutes when you walk in the door. If your goal is mobility, the minimum is one single downward dog stretch.
The pushback my own brain gives me when I do this is, but that isn't enough to change anything. Doing one downward dog is a waste of time.
It is not a waste of time because the goal of the minimum viable action is not the physiological result. The goal is to keep the habit alive in your neurology. The minimum viable action is the floor, not the ceiling.
The floor, not the ceiling. Let's unpack that.
Yeah. On a great day, a Saturday, when you are fully rested and highly motivated, you can reach for the ceiling, you can clean the entire garage, you can do a 60-minute yoga class. But the system isn't designed for Saturday. The system is designed for a terrible Tuesday.
A terrible Tuesday.
When you are exhausted, when the kids are sick, when work was a nightmare, you hit the floor. You clear the nightstand. You do the one stretch. What this does is radically protect your identity. It completely removes the dramatic friction of starting because even on your worst day, you can do the minimum.
That makes it completely bulletproof. Okay, tool number 2 is habit stacking. This is a concept heavily utilized by both B.J. Fogg and James Clear. The core idea is that you do not try to build a new habit in a vacuum. You attach the fragile new behavior to an existing, deeply automatic routine.
You are using the existing rhythms of your life as an energetic doorway. Your brain already has highly myelinated, thick neural pathways for things you do every day without thinking, like brushing your teeth or making coffee. You're simply piggybacking your new minimum viable action onto that existing neural infrastructure.
But I have to admit, I have struggled with this. Habit stacking sounds brilliant in a book, but when I tried stacking journaling onto my morning coffee routine, it failed spectacularly.
What happened?
My plan was, after I pour my morning coffee, I will sit down and journal. But I ended up just staring at a blank page, feeling anxious, and my coffee got cold, and I eventually just stopped doing it entirely. What went wrong?
That is a classic structural error. Your stack was too heavy for the trigger. You skipped the minimum viable action. Journaling an open-ended page requires a massive amount of cognitive load. Your brain rebelled because the effort was just too high. You have to stack the minimum action.
So instead of I will journal, it should have been after I pour my coffee, I will open my notebook and write one single sentence.
Exactly. Pouring the coffee is the automatic trigger. Writing one sentence is the minimum action. Once you secure that specific stack for 60 days and it feels effortless, then you can slowly expand the action.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, tool number 3 is one of my absolute favorites, and it is a lifesaver for recovering perfectionists. Never miss twice.
This is a rule popularized by James Clear, and it is a brilliant psychological safeguard against the intensity cycle. This rule forces you to acknowledge human fallibility. Missing one day of your habit is just data. It is part of living in a messy world. You got sick, you had a family emergency, or you just forgot. Missing once does not destroy the myelin in your neural pathway.
But missing twice is the beginning of carving a brand new pathway of quitting.
Exactly. When you miss a day, the most critical moment in your entire transformation is how you respond the next day. The intensity cycle tells you that because you missed Wednesday, the perfect streak is ruined, you have failed the test, and you should just burn the whole plan down and start over next month.
Which triggers the shame spiral. Well, I ate a donut for breakfast, the diet is ruined, I might as well order a massive pizza for dinner.
Yes. But the never miss twice rule removes the shame spiral entirely. It gives you permission to stumble, but it demands a quick return. When you return to the habit the next day without punishing yourself, you are sending a profound message of safety to your nervous system. You are telling your brain, we do not abandon ourselves when things get imperfect. You build resilience instead of fragility.
We do not abandon ourselves when things get imperfect.
Yeah.
If you take nothing else away from this deep dive, write that sentence down. Okay, our final tool in the kit, tool number 4, the weekly consistency audit.
We need to fundamentally change the metrics by which we evaluate our lives. At the end of the week, typically on a Sunday evening, I want you to sit down and ask yourself one very specific question. What did I do consistently, even imperfectly, that moved me toward who I am becoming?
Notice the phrasing there. The question is not, did I execute my ambitious plan flawlessly? The question is, what did I do consistently, even imperfectly?
You must actively train your brain to celebrate consistency over intensity. And the reason for this is purely biological. The brain automates what it celebrates. When you attach a feeling of success, pride, and safety to the small, imperfect action, your brain releases a hit of dopamine. That dopamine acts as a neurochemical tag, signaling to your nervous system, that felt good and safe, let's do that again tomorrow.
I love how these 4 tools work together to completely strip away the drama of personal growth. Which brings us to the experiential part of this deep dive. We've designed a challenge for you, the listener. We are officially launching a 30-day mini habit challenge.
We want you to stop consuming information and start building myelin. The parameters of this challenge are extremely strict. You are going to select one tiny, non-negotiable daily action based entirely on the minimum viable action tool.
And here are the rules. This must be a quick 5-minute win, maximum. We want you to build immediate, undeniable momentum. Do not pick a 45-minute gym session. Pick 5 minutes of gentle stretching on your living room rug.
Keep it small.
Do not pick reorganizing your entire garage. Pick 5 minutes of throwing away obvious trash from your car. Do not pick an hour of silent meditation. Pick 5 minutes of conscious box breathing.
The crucial focus here is that for the next 30 days, the completion of this 5-minute action is your only metric of success. If you do your 5 minutes, you have won the day, period.
No extra credit required.
Right. If you feel incredibly inspired on day 12 and you want to do more, you are welcome to keep going. But the extra credit does not change the baseline. The 5 minutes is the only goal.
We want you to experience the compounding effect of 30 unbroken days of action. We want you to feel what it's actually like to build trust with yourself. But I know exactly what is happening right now in your mind. As soon as we issue a challenge like this, your internal resistance flares up. The ego starts throwing a tantrum. The mental static starts buzzing. So it is time to enter manifestation debug mode.
Let's clear that static and tune into the magic. We need to identify and debug the specific mental blocks that keep you trapped in the intensity cycle under the false guise of ambition.
Belief number 1 that is probably popping up in your head right now. Small actions don't make a real difference. I am behind in life. I need to go all in to catch up.
Let's debug this. We have to recognize that the desire to go all in is just an emotional craving for instant gratification. It feels productive, but it is a fantasy. The biological truth is that small is the only way the nervous system learns safety. Small is how you carve the neural path without triggering the brain's threat response.
So the goal isn't massive action.
No, the real question you need to ask yourself is not, what can I achieve when I am maximally motivated and fully caffeinated? The question is, what can I continue to do when my life gets totally ordinary, stressful, and exhausting?
Exactly. You are planning for the worst day, not the best day. Okay, belief number 2 that causes so much static. I have been inconsistent for so long it's just too late. I'm too old or I've missed my window. People carry so much heavy grief over their past failed attempts.
It is heavy, but it is a cognitive distortion. Let's debug it. It is never, ever too late to start the compounding clock. Time is going to pass regardless of what you do. A year from now, today will either be the day you kept waiting, analyzing, and beating yourself up, or it will be the day you quietly began.
You don't have to fix the past.
Exactly. You do not have to fix your entire past. You do not have to apologize for the years you spent in the intensity cycle. You just have to reclaim your next small choice.
Reclaim the next choice. That is powerful. That leads right into belief number 3, the ultimate identity trap. I'm just not a consistent person. It's not in my DNA. Some people have willpower. I don't.
This is a classic identity level trap, and we must debug it clearly. Consistency is not a personality trait. You are not missing a genetic marker for discipline. People who appear to be naturally disciplined do not possess magic willpower. They simply have better cues, more supportive environments, and well-defined minimum actions.
It's a design problem, not an identity flaw.
Exactly. And design problems can be solved. If you haven't been consistent, it just means your system was poorly designed for the reality of your life. Change the design, make the actions smaller, stack it onto an existing habit, remove the shame, and you will completely change the outcome.
Okay, now that we have cleared out the mental static, I want to physically slow things down. We are going to do an interactive reflection. I am going to ask you 3 questions. I want you to genuinely consider them. You can pause the audio if you need to, or just let the questions wash over you while you listen.
Allow yourself to be entirely honest with yourself here. Drop the defenses.
Prompt 1. Where in your life have you been putting things on hold, waiting for the right level of motivation before you begin? And how long have you been waiting?
Just notice the areas where you have outsourced your power to an emotion. Notice how much time you have spent waiting for inspiration to save you.
Prompt 2. What is one area of your life where even the smallest 5-minute consistent action would begin to compound into something deeply meaningful?
Think about the compounding effect of the river. Where would a tiny 1% daily improvement completely change your trajectory a year from now?
Prompt 3. What would your life actually look like 1 year from now if you did one small aligned action in that area every single day, starting today?
Let that vision settle in, because biologically and mathematically, that future is entirely possible.
Now, I want to take that intellectual vision and anchor it deeply in your physical body. We are going to do a guided visualization. So wherever you are, unless you are driving a car, of course, I want you to slow down your physical pacing.
Let your shoulders drop away from your ears. Unclench your jaw. Remove your tongue from the roof of your mouth. Soften your gaze.
Take a slow, deep breath in through your nose and let it out gently through your mouth. Feel the gravity pulling you down. Feel the ground beneath you. I want you to project yourself forward. Imagine yourself a season or two from now. You made the commitment to your 5-minute minimum viable action, and you stuck with it.
Visualize the reality of that journey. It wasn't perfect. Some days you felt incredibly inspired and you did more, but on many days you were tired, overwhelmed, and frustrated. On those days, you simply chose the floor. You did the bare minimum, but you didn't quit. You kept returning to the path.
Notice the quiet, undeniable accumulation that has happened over these months. Feel it in your physical body. Your body feels different. It feels more settled, more aligned, less frantic. Your mind is clearer. The physical space around you feels calmer.
Anchor into the specific feeling. Recognize that the confidence you feel in this future state is not just a fleeting mood. It is a quiet, sturdy structure you have built inside your own neurology. You've become someone who inherently knows how to return to the path.
Bring yourself back gently to the present moment. Take one more deep, grounding breath. I want to remind you that this future version of yourself, the one you just visualized, is not a product of magic. It is simply the mathematical, biological result of choosing the floor over quitting.
If we pull all of these threads together, the story of Ramanujan, the neuroscience of myelin, the psychology of habits, and the spiritual law of signal clarity, the overarching narrative is crystal clear. Intensity is both emotional and structural. It is a fantastic tool for getting you started, for providing that initial spark of awareness. But consistency is the only vehicle designed to survive your ordinary days, and that is what actually gets you to your destination.
The answer to the exhausting, demoralizing intensity cycle is never to apply more pressure. It is never to find a better motivational quote or a more aggressive boot camp. The answer is a smaller action, a lower floor, and a much more forgiving, compassionate return when you inevitably stumble.
If we were to distill this entire deep dive into one single core takeaway, it would be this. Real progress looks like keeping the promise to yourself in miniature. It is choosing to touch the floor instead of walking out of the room entirely because you cannot reach the ceiling today.
Choosing the floor instead of walking out of the room. That reframes everything. So here is your call to action. Start your 30-day mini habit challenge. Do not wait for a perfect Monday morning. Do your 5-minute minimum viable action today, and then, without judgment, do it again tomorrow.
And if you found value or relief in this conversation, we deeply encourage you to share this deep dive with someone in your life who has been terribly hard on themselves for starting and stopping. Share it with a friend who is exhausted and trapped in the intensity cycle.
And don't forget to subscribe to the Vibe Letter for weekly prompts to keep you anchored in this work. Looking ahead, our next conversation is going to be incredibly special. We have been on quite an arc lately, talking about resetting from overwhelm, finding clarity, shipping imperfect work, designing your environment to support your nervous system, and today, consistency. Next time, we are going to explore the long game.
I am so ready for that one.
We are going to look at the staggering reality of what happens when these small, aligned, myelinated actions are allowed to compound over a lifetime. It is going to be a powerful shift in perspective.
I am very much looking forward to unpacking that. It is the natural culmination of everything we are building here regarding sustainable manifestation.
I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over as you transition back into the rest of your day. You do not need to be extraordinary today. You simply need to be consistent. Because extraordinary is simply what consistency looks like after enough time has passed. Ask yourself, what future miracle are you quietly building with the 5 minutes you spend today?
Thanks for joining us today.
We'll catch you next time.